They told you intelligent people talk more. They lied. They told you confidence means being loud. Wrong. They told you the most powerful person in the room is the one you notice first. But what if the most powerful person is the one you never noticed at all? There are minds operating in your world right now. Quiet, still, watching. They don't argue. They don't perform. They don't chase. And yet every room they enter reorganizes around them. You're going to learn 7 traits today. 7 dark, precise, almost frightening patterns of the genuinely high IQ mind. And by the time this ends, you will either recognize yourself in this, or you'll realize someone in your life has been running this on you for years. Stay with me, because the 3rd trait is the one that changes everything. There is a type of mind that appears once in a generation. It isn't celebrated. It isn't obvious. It doesn't announce itself. We call it the ghost architect, not because it disappears, but because it builds structures no one else can see. Every conversation a calculation, every silence a strategy, every word chosen with surgical precision. This is not the loudest voice in the room. It is not the most decorated resume. It is not the sharpest vocabulary. It is the person who asked you one question, one quiet, almost offhand question, and you walked away feeling like you revealed more than you intended. Most people will never become this, not because they lack intelligence, but because they are too addicted to being understood. The ghost architect doesn't need to be understood. That is the source of the power. Pay attention to this. From the moment you entered school, you were trained to perform, trained to answer, trained to raise your hand and prove your worth. Speak up, be heard, make yourself visible. That conditioning is still running in you right now, and it is costing you. Here's where most people get it wrong. They believe intelligence is something you display. More words, more opinions, more visible thinking. But true cognitive power is the opposite. It is absorption. It is restraint. It is the discipline to watch 10 moves ahead while everyone else argues about the one in front of them. The system never rewarded you for this, because a mind that cannot be read cannot be managed, and a mind that cannot be managed is the only mind that is truly free. Here's the truth. The moment you stop needing to be the smartest person in the room, you become the most dangerous one in it. You're in a meeting, 15 people, ideas colliding, egos expanding. One person hasn't spoken. They've watched, nodded once, asked one question 40 minutes ago that no one quite understood at the time. Then right at the end they speak. 5 sentences, and without argument, without theater, the entire conversation restructures around what they said. No one knows how it happened, but everyone felt it. That is not charisma, that is not luck, that is architecture. But this is where it gets dangerous. Because these 7 traits don't just make someone effective, they make someone invisible. And an invisible mind operating at full capacity is the most powerful force in any social system. Let's go through them. Trait 1, strategic silence. The first trait is the one most people mistake for weakness. Silence. Not the silence of someone with nothing to say. The silence of someone who has already decided not to say it. Here's the truth. Every word you speak is data. It reveals what you want, what you fear, where you can be pressured, what you'll give up to avoid discomfort. The ghost architect speaks less than they think, and thinks far more than they show. In negotiation they wait. In conflict they pause. In conversation they let you fill the silence, because silence is pressure, and most people cannot survive pressure. They will talk. They will over-explain. They will volunteer what you never even asked for if you just stay quiet long enough. Write this down. The mind that needs no audience commands every room. The need to be heard is a vulnerability. The freedom from that need is dominance. You make an offer, you state your number, and then you say nothing. The other person shifts, looks at their hands, starts talking about contexts, about fairness, about what they expected. You say nothing. They revise. You still say nothing. They revise again. You never argued. You never pushed, you just waited, and the silence did the work for you. Trait 2. Pattern recognition. Beyond the visible, most people process events. Something happens and they react to it. The ghost architect processes systems. Something happens and they ask what invisible pattern produced this. They see beneath behavior. They notice the topic that gets changed, just a fraction too fast. The compliment with a dagger buried in it. The laugh that comes half a second too late. They read subtext the way ordinary minds read text. But here's what separates them from just being observant. They never reveal what they noticed. They file it. They store it without comment, without reaction, without a single tell. And weeks later, when it matters, they use it. Pay attention to this. You're at dinner. Conversation is warm, light, safe. You mention a name casually offhand, and something crosses their face. A quarter-second pause, a microscopic tightening around the eyes, the smile that continues but no longer reaches them. Most people miss it completely. The ghost architect logs it. They don't react. They don't pursue it. They never bring that name up carelessly again. Because now they understand something about this person that the person doesn't know they revealed. And understanding that no one else has is leverage no one else holds. Here it is, the line that reframes everything. The one who sees the most says the least. Read that again. Not the loudest voice, not the most impressive argument, not the most decorated opinion. The one who sees the most says the least. Because information is only power when the other person doesn't know you have it. The moment you reveal what you know, you surrender the advantage. Trait 3. Radical emotional detachment. This is the one that changes everything. Most people confuse emotional detachment with coldness. They are not the same. The ghost architect feels deeply, sometimes more intensely than anyone around them, but they have constructed a wall not around their heart, but around their reactions. They feel, they do not perform. The reactive person gets hit by a stimulus, the emotion rises, the emotion escapes, the position is exposed, and they can be manipulated. The detached mind gets hit by a stimulus, the emotion rises, the emotion is observed, a response is selected, and nothing leaks without intent. One is a weather vane, the other is a compass. The weather vane spins toward whatever wind arrives. The compass always knows where north is. Someone attacks you publicly, sharp, subtle, dressed as humor. The room watches to see what you do. The reactive person defends, escalates, gets loud, gets red, and in doing so proves the attack landed. The ghost architect pauses, lets silence expand, looks at the person with calm, almost unhurried attention, then says something so precisely calibrated, so undramatic, that the room doesn't know whether it was a response or a dismissal. And that ambiguity is power, not what was said, the stillness from which it came. Power doesn't shout. Power doesn't need to. And this is why most people never see it coming, because they're watching the surface. The words, the tone, the facial expressions. But the ghost architect isn't operating at the surface. It is operating at the level of intent. Every interaction has a visible layer and a structural layer. The visible layer is what's being said. The structural layer is why it's being said, what it's designed to produce, what it reveals about the person saying it. Most people never ask that second question. They just respond, always responding, reacting to inputs they never examined. Inside a game they never knew they were playing. Trait 4. Weaponized patience. Most people cannot wait. This single limitation removes them from elite-level play entirely. They want the result now, the answer now, the answer now, the recognition now. The ghost architect understands something that disqualifies almost everyone else. Timing is intelligence. Not the intelligence of knowing what to do, but the rarer intelligence of knowing when. The right move at the wrong moment is still the wrong move. They let situations develop. They let people reveal themselves fully. They let pressure accumulate in the space between action and reaction. And then at the precise moment when the room is positioned, when attention is placed exactly right, they move, not impulsively, surgically. Patience is not passive. Patience is the discipline to not reveal your hand. Two people want the same promotion. Both qualified, both capable. The first one pushes constantly, sends follow-ups, reminds decision-makers of their contributions, makes their hunger visible. The second one waits, asks one precise question about timing, delivers one exceptional piece of work at exactly the right moment, says nothing else. The committee meets. They talk about hunger and desperation and the exhausting energy of the first candidate, and they call the second one, not because they wanted it more, because they made wanting it invisible. Trait 5, dimensional ambiguity. This is the trait that makes the ghost architect genuinely unsettling to ordinary minds. They are deliberately hard to read, not deceptive in a crude sense, dimensionally ambiguous. They agree with you, and it doesn't feel like agreement. They disagree, and it doesn't feel like conflict. They support you, and somehow you feel slightly off balance. You leave the conversation knowing what they said, but uncertain about what they meant. And that gap between what was communicated and what was intended is controlled territory. Predictability is a cage. The moment someone can predict you, they can manage you. They can calibrate exactly how much to respect you. They can decide in advance how seriously to take you. But the ambiguous mind cannot be filed, cannot be categorized, so people stay alert, slightly uncertain, and you maintain the frame, always. You're asked your opinion on a sensitive topic. The room expects you to choose a side. The predictable person does, immediately, loudly, completely, and in doing so becomes manageable. Categorized, known, the ghost architect tilts their head, says something that contains truth from multiple angles, something that makes every person in the room think you might agree with them specifically. You haven't lied, you haven't evaded, you've simply refused to be placed in a box. Here is what most people fundamentally misunderstand about power. They think it comes from displaying strength, from projecting certainty, from performing dominance, and sometimes it does. But the deeper game, the game that plays over years, over careers, over the long arc of a life, that game is won by the one who cannot be predicted. Not reacting creates a vacuum, and vacuums pull people in. When you don't react to a provocation, people become curious about what you know. When you don't jump at an obvious opportunity, people wonder what you've already seen. When you don't fill the silence, people fill it for you. And the story they construct is almost always more powerful than anything you could have said yourself. Someone takes a shot at you in a group setting, subtle, plausibly deniable, dressed as wit. The room waits. You don't flinch. You don't defend. You don't smile too fast. You simply let your eyes settle on them for one beat too long. Then you smile slowly, quietly, not the strained smile of someone pretending to be fine, the unhurried smile of someone who just filed information and moved on. The room feels it. They can't name what happened, but they know something did, and the person who threw the stone is the one who looks small. Non-reaction is not weakness. It is the most controlled form of aggression. Trait 6. Emotional intelligence as precision. Here is the dark truth most self-development content refuses to say. Emotional intelligence, real high resolution. Emotional intelligence is not just empathy, it is precision. The ghost architect reads the emotional state of a room with eerie accuracy, not to make everyone comfortable, to understand the mechanics of what is actually happening beneath the surface. Who is performing confidence they don't have? Who is one acknowledgement away from becoming loyal? Who in this room is quietly threatened and would undermine you if given cover? This is not manipulation in the theatrical sense. It is social physics, the invisible forces that govern why people do what they do. Understanding those forces and navigating by them. You enter a room. 4 people, laughter, surface warmth, but in 10 seconds you've already noticed. One person's laugh comes a half beat late. They're performing, not present. One hasn't looked up from their phone. They're somewhere else entirely. One is making sustained, almost hungry eye contact with whoever speaks. They need to be seen. And one is watching you, quietly, carefully. The ghost architect acknowledges the one who needs to be seen with one precise question, directed exactly at them. Watches the room reorganize, notes the one who was watching, and files everything. Emotional intelligence in the hands of a trained mind is one of the sharpest instruments in existence. Here is what separates the ghost architect from everyone else in the room. Most people experience social reality as spontaneous. Things happen, conversations arise, decisions get made. To them, life feels like a river they're floating down. The ghost architect sees the riverbed, the hidden architecture, the invisible rules, the positioning system that runs beneath every interaction. They understand that status is constantly being negotiated. Trust is extended and withdrawn in real time. Power flows always in every room toward whoever understands the rules of that particular game. And the first rule, the only rule that contains all the others, is this: the player who knows they're playing always beats the player who doesn't. Not in every single move, but over time, relentlessly, inevitably they win, because they're not reacting to the game, they're designing it. Let's be honest about this, because it matters. The ghost architect is not the most liked person in the room. Respected often, feared sometimes, misread almost always. People will call them cold, distant, difficult to know. Let them, because the people who do finally see it, who earn proximity to this mind, they don't just like them, they trust them completely. They've watched them hold sensitive information without weaponizing it carelessly. They've seen them stay steady inside situations that collapsed everyone else. They've watched them make moves that only made sense months later. That kind of trust cannot be performed, cannot be purchased, cannot be faked. It is earned through the slow accumulation of a mind that operates differently, not liked by everyone, misunderstood by most, depended on by the ones who matter. Trait 7. Long-game cognition. This is the trait that makes everything else possible, the one that locks the entire architecture in place. The ghost architect does not optimize for today, they optimize for positioning, how today sets up next month, how this conversation shapes the next one, how this restraint right now builds leverage they haven't needed to use yet. Most people play checkers, move, react, move, react. The ghost architect plays a version of chess where they choose which pieces exist. They build the board while everyone else is still learning the rules. This is why they seem strange. This is why they seem distant. This is why people say, I can never quite figure them out. Good. That is the architecture working. Being figured out is being managed. Being managed is being contained. And the ghost architect was never built to be contained. The ghost architect. Not a villain, not a predator, a builder, someone who understands that thought is architecture, that every room, every conversation, every choice is a brick laid in something being constructed across years. Most people exist reactively. The ghost architect exists by design, and the distance between those two modes of being is the distance between being moved by the world and moving it. This is rare, it always has been, because most people will not pay the price of self-mastery it requires. The silence isn't natural, the patience isn't comfortable, the detachment isn't easy, it is trained. Conversation by conversation, choice by choice, day by day, until it is no longer what you do, but who you are. One final thing, because precision matters here. True emotional control is not suppression. The person who suppresses is a dam waiting to break. Pressure builds invisibly, and eventually in one unguarded moment it collapses, and everything constructed through restraint is destroyed in seconds. That is not what we're describing. True control is integration. You feel the emotion fully, you acknowledge it internally, completely, privately. Then you choose your response separately from the feeling. Feel it, don't become it. When you develop this, you become something almost no one in your environment has ever encountered. Someone fully present and completely unreadable. simultaneously warm and unreachable, engaged and untouchable. People won't be able to name why they trust you, why they want your opinion, why you feel different from everyone else they know, and you will never explain it, because the ghost architect understands. The moment you explain the power is the moment you surrender it. 7 traits: strategic silence, pattern recognition beyond the visible, radical emotional detachment, weaponized patience, dimensional ambiguity, emotional precision, long game cognition. Now, the question I want to leave with you, sit with it, don't perform an answer, actually sit with it. When you walk into a room, are you building something, or are you just responding? Because everything we discussed today lives inside that gap. The gap between reaction and architecture. The gap between playing the game and designing it. The ghost architect never wonders if they're playing. They know, and knowing is everything. If something in this shifted something in you, if you felt what was being said beneath what was being said, then you already see it. You already feel the distance between how you've been operating and what you're actually capable of. Comment below. 3 words. I see the game. And if you're ready to go deeper, the next video goes darker. Because once you understand the architecture, the question becomes what you build with it. Subscribe, stay close, and stay quiet.